up guys, BNR 1, 2, and 2, and it's list day! I haven't done one of these in a long time, so I figured, hey, you know what? Got some time, Caitlin's on tour, let's do some more complicated videos, and a list is a great place to start. The story of this list starts several days ago when Ryan and I were testing a deck and we got into talking about field spells. I believe we were talking about the Necro Valley errata, and I was like, damn Ryan, this card just gets better and better. And he was like, yes Dave, it totally does. I wonder what other field spells are good. Well, I bet you could make a list of that. And then I said, okay. And this is that list. Now, before we get started, I want to preface this with a couple of rules for the list, just so that I can see if I can get away with people not bitching and moaning in the comments, which you're gonna do anyway, I know it. But I need to say it anyway for my own posterity's sake. Basically, what makes a field spell good is not simply that it makes a deck work, but it is actually useful outside of an archetype it was intended for. Something like, oh, I don't know, UA Stadium is a great card in UAs. It makes the deck work, and without it, the deck, it ceases to function. However, that doesn't make the card good, that just makes it good in the deck it's for. And we're really gonna try to ignore that, because simply making a deck function doesn't make it good. It's what else can it do? And you'll see this be a very important point throughout the entirety of the video. Anyway, let's get started! Woo! The first card on this list is Magical Meltdown. This one is a really cool card because it allows you to fusion summon essentially in any deck you want, because this is part of an extremely splashable engine, the Invoked engine. First and foremost, it allows you to search your Alistair the Invoker. And without Alistair, you can't summon all of the invoked fusion monsters, so he's really important. And furthermore, Alistair lets you summon the fusion card, so you just can kind of daisy chain. Yes! And you can get this with Terraforming, so that makes the invoked fusion engine extremely searchable because it just daisy chain into each other. But that's not all it does. That is probably what you consider the in-archetype ability. And if it just had that, it wouldn't be on the list, because that's only good in Invoked, even though Invoked is pretty splashable. It's the next effect that's actually useful outside of your Invoked engine. Your opponent cannot negate the activation or effects of cards that include the effect of fusion summoning a monster. Which means, while this card's on the field, your opponent can't Solemn Warning your Polymerization, your Shaddoll fusions, the actual invoked fusion card. Hell, all your Frightfur thing. Instant fusion, technically, because it's considered a fusion summon. Any of the fusion summoning spell cards cannot be negated if you have this on the board, which means you at least are insured to get the monster. Your opponent also cannot activate card effects when the monster is fusion summoned, which means they can't even respond to the summon after it hits the field, so they can't hit it with something like, well, I don't know, Fiendish Chain or Bottomless Trap Hole, things like that. So yes, this card really ensures that you are going to be able to get your fusion summon off, which makes this not only a very splashable engine, but a self-protecting engine as well, giving you a really good boost. And if you tech this into other fusion decks, those decks will also benefit from this protection as well. So it's a bit of a boosted bonus. This next one might actually come as a surprise, Zombie World. Now you're gonna say, Dave, Zombie World's a good card, but is it really one of the best field spells we have? Well, yes. And its two effects are actually rather interesting. Its first effect makes all monsters on the field and monsters in the graveyard turn into zombies, which, okay, that's kind of its in-archetype ability, which we don't care about as much, but it is actually kind of neat because it does combo well with things like Mizuki. So in a zombie deck, if you have other things in your graveyard that aren't zombies, this turns them into zombies, being able to extend your plays a little bigger. But what we really care about is the more general application of the card, which makes it good, not just good in the deck it's for. And that is that your opponent cannot tribute summon monsters except zombies. You're gonna say, well, who cares? Who tribute summons nowadays? Well, there's two main decks that do that. Monarchs and True Dracos. It's searchable via Terraforming, and because it's a spell, it's a little faster than your Mask of Restrict. Sure, they can out it, but they can out the Restrict anyway as well, so hey, you might as well play the searchable field card. Now, this also does work against Monarchs, but to a lesser extent, because Erebus is a zombie. It's like Konami knew that people are going to get cheeky and take that Zombie World and try to use it against their new, awesome, fandangled meta deck Monarchs. And we're like, nah, if we make one of them a zombie, people won't do that. But it does stop them from tribute summoning every other monster they have, especially things like, I don't know, Vanity's Fiend, and if you're playing like a zombie deck, that'd be a nightmare to deal with. So it's still at least a relevant idea, but it's much better against your Dracos. I really like Zombie World on this list because it's one of those obscure older cards that every once in a while, it's just a really solid tech choice. And like I said, it's a little more searchable than your Mask of Restrict, so yeah, it's got some bonuses. Sky Iris, the Pendulum support field spell. Sky Iris is gonna be kind of the odd one out on the list because its effects are predominantly meant for Pendulum decks, the thing that the card directly supports, but it's such a crucial combo piece for like Odd Eyes Magicians and things like that, and it would be a crime not to mention it. And it does provide protection for more than one archetype, so it's generic enough, right? Magicians, Perform Pales, and Odd Eyes monsters in your Pendulum zone cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects, so they're not going to be twin twistering your scales that you worked so hard to get anytime soon. And its next effect is actually really interesting and combos really well with Sangan. Just saying. Once per turn, you can target one of your face-up cards on the field, destroy that card, and then search one Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand. This lets you extend your Pendulum plays because when you pop one of your Pendulum scales, it goes to the extra deck, and then you can summon it again and just keep using it over and over again. So it kind of lets you keep that old Wavering Eye style, you know, play your scales, pop, play your scales, pop, play your scales, pop, summon the lot. It kind of gives you that ability to still kind of make those moves. Like I said, it is a destruction, so you can use it on something like Sangan and get a double search. Woot! Overall, it's a solid support card for Pendulum decks, and I really couldn't see you playing Odd Eyes Magicians without it. Fire King Island. This one's a weird one. Just reading the effect, you're gonna be like, yeah, this kind of sucks, but bear with me. If this face-up card is sent from the field to the graveyard or banished, destroy all monsters you control. Oh, yuck. Once per turn, you can activate one of these effects, and it's got two. One, you can destroy one card on your field or in your hand to search a Fire King monster. Hey, that's its in-archetype ability, right? So that was the one we care about less. Well, we would if it wasn't Fire King Island. So again, bear with me. And this last effect, which is actually the more generic of the two, and yet the least useful, once per turn you can special summon one Fire Wing Beast monster from your hand to the field. So probably your Garunix, but it's generic, so you could do any Fire Wing Beast. Like I said, this one's a weird one. It's ironically the less generic effect is the one we actually care about and use more generically. All because it says you can destroy a card in your hand. Destroying a card in your hand is a really strange mechanic. Most cards don't allow you to do that. It's considered a discard, not a destroy. But that is very important because several cards in this game want to be destroyed and don't actually care where they were destroyed from. They don't have to be on the field in order to get effects off. Things like the baby dinosaurs, baby Ceresaurus, and that Pterodon thing, as well as all of the Cosmo ships, want to be destroyed, which means if you destroy one of these in your hand, you will get its graveyard effect off. Oh, and you'll also search a Fire King monster, so you can kind of get some of that advantage back as well as activate an effect. Like I told you, weird one. Hell, that first weird effect where it nukes your board when this thing leaves the field isn't even a problem in a deck like Cosmos, where you can just keep extending your plays by keep nuking yourself. It's really counterintuitive, but you've ever actually watched a really high tier, very good Cosmo player play his deck, it's just and he just pukes. Very strange mechanic, and it works damn well with the decks that can use it. Speak of the devil, Cosmo Town. Cosmo Town is a fantastic card. It's easy to see why Cosmos is such a powerful deck, even after losing two of its Dark Destroyers. Besides the aforementioned Fire King Island letting it just puke on the board, Cosmo Town is your consistency play. All of its effects are fantastic. For the cost of life points, 100 per level, you can add one Cosmo monster from your banished pile to your hand, which allows you just to get all of your Cosmos, which ban themselves via their own effects, back to your hand so you can recur some of your advantage that you lost by puking on the board. Also, when this thing is destroyed from the field and sent to the graveyard, you can add one Cosmo card from your deck to your hand, including itself, which is kind of an unusual search ability. Most cards that have search abilities can't search themselves, so you don't just deck thin like crazy, but this thing does let you get another Cosmo Town. But what really sets this over, even though most of these effects are pretty stuck to a Cosmo deck, which kind of breaks the rule of the list a little bit, but it's my list, I can do what I want, is the fact that it also bestows Cosmos a mulligan effect. Basically, during their main phase, they can reveal any number of Cosmos in their hand and put them back in their deck and then shuffle and draw that many cards. In a deck where you have a bunch of giant ships and weak, low-level monsters and you need to have a combination of the two in order to play, having an ability to shuffle your cards and redraw a hand is fantastic. There are so many decks in this game that would love to have an in-archetype theme mulligan effect in order to get their combo pieces right. Again, breaking my own rule with this one a little bit because all the effects are pretty much stuck in its own deck. However, it is just a fantastic card and it pretty much makes the deck, so it'd be really weird not to mention it. This next one might be one of the best stun cards we have in the game, and that's Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Basically a searchable version of Imperial Order? Hell yes! If you control a spellcaster monster, your opponent cannot use spell cards at all. They can't even out it with an MST. Lol. The only backside is if you don't have a spellcaster, you can't use spells. So that kind of sucks, but so you can only use this in a spellcaster deck. However, when you can drop this thing, it's extremely debilitating to your opponent. And what I really like about Secret Village is that it's kind of a fair card. A lot of these you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh cards are hard to out or annoying to out, and there are just complete, absolute shutdown. This one, however, lets your opponent get rid of your monster and shut you out of your spell. So it's kind of a tick for tack ability. You can get out of it by ramming a monster into their other guy. So it's not super stunny, but it's just stunny enough that played at the right time, it can be really a blowout. It's a really, really good card, and if you're playing a spellcaster deck, there's like zero reason to not use this card. I really can't think of it. Ravine! Dragon Ravine is a fantastic card, and you can tell because it's at 2 right now, and before it's put to 3 in the next ban list, and I look really out of date with this video. Why is Dragon Ravine at 2? Well, because if you're playing any of the Dragon decks, it's absolutely great in them. Pretty much every Dragon deck ever can run Dragon's Ravine and make a good case for it. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card from your hand to activate one of these 2 effects. And the first one is that in-archetype effect that we talk about. It lets you search a Dragoonity monster. I'm sorry, Dragoonities, but no one gives a rat's ass. Oh, it's a fantastic search card for the deck, and it's a really fun deck to watch go off because it makes like this 80 move combo for an OTK, but it's really glass cannon, easy to stop. But I digress. It's that second effect though. You can mill a dragon from your deck to the graveyard. Oh, yeah, that's really good. There's a reason why dragons have their own version of Foolish Burial. It's because dragons like to be in the graveyard. People say this about zombies, but I would contest that dragons probably like it more. With the Felgrand support cards, all the Blue Eyes support cards, the Red Eyes, Disaster Dragon, Chaos Dragons, Heretics. To say this card isn't generic is really unfair because there is probably more than half the games in this deck are dragon decks, or have dragons in them. Unless it's worms, but that's a gimmick. They're just dragons. They're just not called dragons. They're still dragons. Because dragons are cool! And this card really makes pretty much any dragon deck you want to play much more consistent. Not all of them use it, because it's a room thing pretty much, but you can always make the case for it. It's a really good card. Well, I mean, it's at 2 for a reason, right? Like, they don't just limit cards for no reason. Oh, the Saltmaker Domain of the True Monarchs. Oh, I hate this card, but that doesn't mean it's not absolutely fucking fantastic. Pretty much the only reason why you'd want to play a bricky deck like Monarchs, because if you can get this thing's effect to activate, your opponent is shit out of luck, unless they're also playing Monarchs. Its in-archetype ability is actually kind of interesting. It lets you reduce the level of one of your Monarchs in your hand by 2, which lets it be more easily normal summoned because it's the 2800 1000 defense, which implies the level 8, which makes it a level 6, so you can get it for 1 sack. Woot! Also, your tribute summoned monsters can do a little bit extra battle damage during the damage calc. That's cute, I suppose, but again, we don't give a fuck about that one. No! We care about that stun effect. Fuck that effect. If you control a tribute summoned monster, your opponent can't summon monsters from his extra deck. So, fuck you. What's the worst part about that effect is, you know, you can still special summon all your main deck monsters you want. So your Terratop can go into a Take-A-Tom board, and you can just sit on it. Oh, you can tour guide in your Scarm still, and sit on it. You can totally use your Harpy Channeler and go into another Harpy and sit on it. It's like the worst. Yes, this card is fantastic, and it's searchable by like 8 different things, because that's all that deck does. That's why they limited Pantheism. So yeah, the card's great, and even if I despise the damn thing, it would be criminal not to include it on this list and as high as I have. It's good. It's good. I hate this card. Divine Wind of the Mist Valley. This has to be on the list because it's at 1 right now. If a card's on the Forbidden Limited list in any way, it must be good. So therefore, it would be stupid not to include it. And actually, this card is very good. Divine Wind of the Mist Valley has a very interesting effect. Whenever a wind monster would return to your hand, you can summon one level 4 or lower wind monster from your deck to the field. Oh yes, you can Harpy Dancer into a Terror Top. Ha-ha! You can get out your damn Barrier of the Storm Winds. There's a lot of stupid crap with like the Wind Witches you can do. This thing has tons of really, really good targets. And like all those archetypes that say, oh, you can only summon wind monsters after you do this, who cares? The Wind Monster Synchro lineup and the Wind Monster XC lineup are really good, and all the main deck Wind Monster decks are all really good, so this card probably really should be at 1. It's a sad truth, but whatever. I'm just waiting for it to go to 2 or 3 though, because then you can make like a mishmashy wind deck, and it would just be really fun and a lot of power. Overall, a great combo card, which is fun because it doesn't actually really do anything broken itself, but it allows you to just get cool stuff out your deck, and you can't fault it for that one. Before we get to the most obvious number 1 in the history of the game, we got some honorable mentions. The first one's probably the most important because it's the only banned one. Chicken Game. Chicken Game, you still lame, but we all love you all the same. I don't know why I'm dancing so much. Chicken Game is a really stupid card. Lets you each draw a card during your turn for the cost of 1,000 life points, or you can use 1,000 life points to kill it, and you can just do this stupid Chicken Game thing. It's banned because even though it's balanced, because you both can do it, your opponent's probably never ever going to get a chance to even use the Chicken Game because it's going to let you draw into pseudo space. You're going to pseudo space in the Chicken Game, you're going to draw more, then you're going to OTK, your opponent's never going to get a chance to do anything. So it's good it's banned, but it's good. It's certainly a good card. It's like a better Upstart Goblin, frankly. It's searchable. Lost World. This card's actually fantastic. It's really good in the dinosaur deck. However, it's really landlocked to dinosaurs, and unlike Cosmo Town, where it's just absolutely absurdly broken, this one's just a really solid card for the deck. So I was like, I'll mention it as an honorable mention, but as one of the best field spells in the game, Starlight Junction. I really wanted this one to be in the main list, but it's like one of those cards that would be fantastic if it just had a deck to use it. Whenever you would synchro summon on your opponent's turn, you can spin a card back to their deck. Yes, that's great! Except there's really not much that can do that. Oh, Synchrons can do it with Formula, but they'd much rather go ham on their own turn so they can go into triple Quasar or some bullshit. Oh, you can do it in Yang Zings, but again, they would much rather just synchro summon on their own turn. And I guess they could run it, but have you ever seen the Yang Zing player run Starlight Junction? No. Or you can run it in Crystons, which could pretty much only synchro summon during their opponent's turn, which isn't good because that's super awkward to do. It's a really fun deck to play, and this is an absolute staple in that deck, but again, to really shine, this card needs a fantastic deck in order to utilize it, not just an okay one. Now it's time for my favorite card on the list, even though it's not number 1, it's just an honorable mention, Black Garden. Black Garden is such a weird card, I couldn't help but include it. Its effect isn't inherently broken, it's just really, really strange and has extremely niche uses. However, it's just a really cool card. I just love the way it works. Basically, whenever one of you would summon a monster, the other player gets a stupid rose token special summon to their field. It's really weird. The more you summon, the more you clog up your opponent with these dumb tokens. And anything that's not a rose token gets its attack cut in half. So that little 800 body that those tokens are starts becoming a problem if you can't summon bigger monsters out of your extra deck because all your normal level 4s and lowers are all getting cut in half. So your 1600 becomes an 800 attack power monster really, really quick. And then it's a match for a dumb little token. In certain control decks like Chain Beat, this thing is just really obnoxious. Not to mention there's a couple of cheeky OTKs you can do with this card, but it's a Chain Beat card, let's be real. Overall, it's just a really weird card, and I just love it. Alright, it's time for number 1! A number 1 you all saw coming. It's Necro Valley. Necro Valley is a really weird card because not only is it probably one of the most errata card in the games, it's one of the only cards that where every time it gets an errata, it gets better. Well, what does it do? Well, it gives your Gravekeepers 500 attack. Yeah, ain't nobody give a shit about that. It's the slew of other crap that it does that people actually care about. This video is using the errata that came out right before Link summoning with that Duelist Legacy pack or whatever it is, the box with Yugi in the middle. So that way, if anyone's watching this at a later date, you're gonna be like, that's not what it does, it's better than that. Well, this is why. And it will get errated again. We all know it. Cards in either player's graveyard cannot be banished. That means things like zombies and chaos and dragon rulers and any of those dumb little one-off spells and traps that banish themselves for effects. Snow! All of your Mizuki plays. There's a slew of monsters and spells and traps that all just banish themselves from the graveyard or banish other cards from the graveyard to do crap. And this says, nah, bro. If that shit's in the graveyard, it better not go to a banish pile. Stop it. Not only does it do that, it prevents any card effect from moving a card from the graveyard to any other spot. So you can't special summon crap to the field, you can't shuffle crap back into your deck, you can't add crap back to your hand. That stuff is stuck in a grave. Stop it. No. Certain decks need to be able to utilize their graveyard as a resource, and if like you're a grass deck, for instance, and you milled 30 cards in the graveyard, and then your opponent drops this crap on you, that's really cool. You milled like half your deck, which you can't use. I guess I'm just gonna scoop. Oh, and it has one last ability. It's not super relevant, but it does negate that zombie world way back up on the top of the list. Any card that would change the attribute or type of monsters in the grave is also negated. So again, your zombie world. I can't even think off the top of my head another card that does that, but it negates zombie world. So if you're trying to be cheeky and use zombie world against your true Dracos, they're gonna drop Necro Valley on you and be like, haha, gotcha. This card is just so good. Overall, not only one of the best field spells in the game, one of just the best spells in the game in general. Alright guys, that was the list. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun to put together because there's a lot of really good field spells, and this one was exceptionally hard to make, especially when it came down to the honorable mentions. There was like 10 cards I wanted to talk about, but I'm not doing a 20 card list. That's stupid. That's like half the field spells in the game. I'm not doing that. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what your favorite field spell is, and remember guys, if you don't troll the meta, who will? I will see you guys next time!
Oh, hey losers. What are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. Wanna watch something else? Hurry up and choose one of these. Ugh. When are you gonna make a choice? This year would be nice.